Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the CKSIM show. We are 3 shows in this season, and it's already been very exciting and a lot to look forward to. Before we get into it today, I would love to ask you, if you haven't already, please hit subscribe, show your support, and it means a lot. Take a look at our previous shows, leave comments, engage. I am a very responsive host, and I will get back to you. If you want to be a guest on the show, also reach out and we can make that happen. Today, we're going to be talking to a woman who has done so much in her life and has definitely overcome adversity as well. And I'm so excited to talk to her, and we will talk to her very shortly. Her name is Laura Van Warmer, and she is a novelist. She has a podcast of her own. She used to be an editor at Doubleday, and she has a great story that she's going to be sharing with us today. So we're going to talk to her in just a moment, right after this.
A little show of happy, a little show of shine. Come and hear some stories, maybe leave inspired. Give your mind a break, maybe heal your soul. Come and spend a while at the CK Sim Show.
Welcome to the show, Laura Van Warmer. How are you?
Well, I'm great now that I'm here. And
well, I'm great that you're here as well. For the guest at home, the podcast almost didn't happen because Laura and I almost lost ourselves in conversation. And I'm like, wait, there's got to be a podcast here, right?
No, but I have to tell anybody who's watching this, because I'm going to tell everybody who listens to me, and you don't need the camera. You can just listen to this podcast.
Yes.
And it is so absorbing because it's like anyone who has done anything in their life and faced creative challenges and wondering about, God, should I take antidepressants? Isn't that wrong? Or do I have a smoking problem? Or do I have a drink? If you're just a human being with a brain in your head, you're going to identify with everything. And CK is going to solve all your problems.
Oh my gosh.
That was the thing. By the end of the night, I felt so good. So I listened to all of CK's shows last night. And in the beginning, I was like, gosh, this is getting really kind of deep. And then I thought, well, you know what? This is really good. He's really into this. And that's what you have to amplify on this show. And we should call, who are the major drug companies? Merck.
So I don't take compliments well. I get all like weird about it.
No, well, don't.
I think I appreciate that.
No, you're great. And it's just in this cold, brutal world, to hear real human connection and real empathy, which you have. It really does something inside of you. It opens you up. So I'm here. I'm like ready to lie down. Okay, you're KCK, whatever you want. I got my sign up. So
I am kind of without words, to be honest with you. Your kindness
sweetie,
is
I'm sorry.
No,
I've overwhelmed you. Yeah, no, it can be overwhelming.
No, it's all good. I started out.
It's resonating with you. You do know what I'm saying is absolutely true.
Yes, because
yeah,
it resonates with me because when I set out to do the show over 2 years ago, I wanted to be a little light in the darkness. And I wanted to tell stories of wonderful human beings who have faced the greatest challenges in their lives, and to show that anybody who feels like they're lost or they don't have a direction or somewhere to go, all of these examples of people who found their version of success. And I've been so lucky and fortunate to have met some incredible people along this way. And you are one of those incredible people. This is my pivot. I've been pivoting to you. Well, I spent the morning reading through your website, right? So one of my secret sauces is I don't typically spend a lot of time researching my guests before. My metric is, do they have a story of adversity that they want to share
Yeah.
with my people, right? Which is pretty easy for a lot of people. A lot of people go through so many different things. And if that's the case, if they have a story that they want to share that I feel that I can sit with and respect and hold space for, then we're going to go ahead. And then I don't look before the show starts because I don't want to have a regimented sort of list of questions.
Yeah,
I
you
want,
don't want to decide who your guest is before you,
yeah,
or you
exactly.
don't want to believe what the guest tells you who they are, because that's not necessarily right either, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
But take us back
Yeah.
to when Laura
Laura.
was sitting on the kitchen floor.
Now you're going to make me cry.
It's a
Yeah.
safe place.
Well, my real mom, my biological mother, was from a small town in Texas, Jacksboro, Texas. She was one of 10. And when I was little, she had me sit on the floor and she'd tear a picture out of Life magazine. And she'd say, "Well, Laura Eleanor, tell me what's going on in this picture." So I would make up a story about what I saw in that picture. And then when I could write, with one of those big, thick red pencils, I would write those stories. And I've been doing it ever since. I mean, she started me. And the fact that she died when I was fairly young. Wait a minute. Let's be honest, Laura. My mother wanted me to be a ballerina. Nah, wasn't happening. Laura wanted to sing. No, couldn't do it. Would she be artistic? No, I couldn't do anything. I had all these lessons, piano and everything. But writing that was the one. That was the one I could be.
I know you say that because you said it on your site as well. Like you could fulfill all these other wishes that your mother had,
Yeah. Well, she
but
had dreams,
of course, which I think every mother has for their children to a degree. But like, I wonder when you say that, like, did you become the incredible writer that you became because of all of those lessons and the sort of wide berth
of
of daring?
telling a story. Yes, yes. Because I had two wonderful things happen to me. That my father remarried later while I was still a kid, and my stepmother was wonderful, and she was from Westmount, Montreal, CK.
Oh wow, okay.
Nana lived right around the corner from you, I bet. And she was very outgoing, and my mother was very outgoing. They were charming women. They gave something of themselves to people. So they had these great relationships with strangers, and the relationships got worse as they got to know them better, right? Which is sometimes what happens with people, is that if the relationships are superficial, they do fine. And when
Mhm.
they get intimate, things can go wrong. And for my real mother, well, let's put it this way. She married my dad on their fifth date in Jacksboro, Texas. And I think his most charming asset was the fact he was a young executive from the East Coast. She was interested in leaving Texas, shall we say.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So her dreams, were they dreams for me or were they her own dreams? She was very beautiful. I do not look like her at all. I have her eyebrows, actually. I don't know how to do a screen share. Do you have a screen? Know how to do that?
On here, I
Yeah,
do not actually
I
know.
don't either.
But if you send me a picture after, I can put it up.
Oh,
That I
okay.
do,
It'd be
yeah.
fun. She has me as a baby, and I was the homeliest child you ever saw in your life. And she was just gorgeous. And I have no idea what I'm trying to say, except
That's
that
okay.
she and my father got to know each other, and the marriage wasn't a very happy one, you know, which is too bad. So, you know, she wanted me to do everything she wanted to do. And I was blessed because I am the first people, the class of 74, anybody who graduated in 74, you were the first generation of American that was told as a girl you could be whatever you wanted to be when you grew up. Because Gloria Steinem had just showed up and women were marching in the streets for the ERA. There were riots going on that, gee, guess what? People of color are equal in rights too. And the only people who weren't equal at that time, we had blacks, Jews, women, all their rights were getting stored, but the gays were still behind.
Absolutely.
So one of the themes in the class of 74 is people are trying to identify all the closet cases because we had them.
Of course.
We
We
had
still
them.
have them.
Yes. But it was an exciting time. And so unlike my mother, I knew I was going to go to college. And that was only because my parents had worked so hard. I don't know. This show, I'm sorry, you asked me a question. I have to stop because I'll just run all over you. And I don't want to do that.
But I am okay with wherever this goes, this goes. Did you
Well,
have something you wanted to share?
well, yeah. I thought I was going to be a soap opera writer, actually, when I got out of college. And I went to an interview at Doubleday because I heard the editor-in-chief was looking for a secretary. And when I thought of Doubleday, I thought of Sherlock Holmes stories. I thought of Phyllis Whitney and Taylor Caldwell and William F. Buckley Jr. and Stephen King was discovered there. Everybody was there. And I went, and while I was waiting to interview, Jackie Onassis walked through the reception area. And my mother, I think the greatest tragedy of my mother's life was the fact that President Kennedy was killed in Texas. I was in, I think, second grade when it happened. She never got over it, ever. And she kept crying. And later, she had a drinking problem later, and she would cry about Jackie and those little children
She
all
had a
by
heart.
herself. She had 2 kids. My mom had 2 kids. And when I saw Jackie, I knew I had to be here because I knew my mother would want me to be here and know her. What a way to shape a career, right? That's pretty much how my life has gone, though. That sort of an accident of this or that. And I did get the job and I did work my way up to editor and I did know Jackie. And God bless her, my stepmother came in to see where I was working, and I was walking down the hall, and I didn't know Jackie very well. I'd only worked there for like 2 months. And she was with Nancy Tuckerman, who was her press secretary in the White House. Nancy worked at Doubleday too. And I just blurted out, and I've got my stepmother next to me, and I'm like, Jackie, I'd like you to meet my mother. And I thought, oh my God, Laura, what are you doing? Because you don't even know her. And I said, this is my mother, Marjorie Van Warmer. I said, Marjorie, this is Mrs. Onassis. And Jackie looked at her and she said, I am so glad to meet you. You must be very proud of Laura.
Wow.
She made my life. But that's who she was. I mean, Jackie was a mom first. You hear all these stories and this and that, but of course, do you think I'm ever going to forget that, CK? She was, and I knew that my mother was there too, and this was
Which of
a
course,
good thing. Yeah, I know. So I've had a lot of remarkable moments like that in my life. And in fact, later I wanted to pursue my own writing, but I couldn't do it and be an editor too. And so I left Doubleday. I got a job. I was writing some books with the creators of, well, you weren't even born yet, Dallas and Knots Landing and
I was
Dynasty.
born. I remember these shows,
They were
actually.
huge. And Doubleday was doing a book with the Dynasty creator, Esther Shapiro. And there was a problem on the book. So they had sent me out to California to see if I could help. And because I was sort of the media person, and when I came home, Laura Marr Studios called and said, would you like to write a Dallas book? Because the Dallas people are jealous of the Dynasty book. So I left Doubleday and I wrote this Dallas book to support myself while I was learning how to write. Jackie was the most supportive person in the world because I'd go back to Doubleday and hang out because I was so lonely, sitting at home alone in New York City. And she told me to go to the museum and go to the movies, go to the first movie, like at 12 o'clock. Use this other life that you've got, Laura. do all the things that you wouldn't normally do because you don't have all the time constraints everybody else does. So I learned to do things like go to lunch at the Russian tea room at, 2:00. Why? Because I could. And then that's when all these interesting people would walk in because I didn't want to see people. I mean, the public or whatever. So it was, anyway, so she did teach me a lot. Also, to get in the back of the elevator in the corner, because if some weirdo got in the elevator, you had your right arm. If you were right-handed, you could push them and get out of the elevator. See, there
So
were
lots
little,
of sound advice there.
yeah,
Sound
yeah,
advice.
yeah. So
You
that's the most famous person I ever knew. And she was so glad that I was writing novels, and she went in and asked my editor for a copy, and she liked it. So I
that's
was I always wanted to be a novelist, really. When I was going to write for a soap opera, it was because I didn't think I had anything to say because I hadn't done anything in my life. And then I wrote my first book, Riverside Drive, was about my neighborhood in New York and about something happening to the cleaning lady and everyone meeting for each other for the first time. And the neighborhood was never the same again. It was about village life within New York City, and it was hugely successful. And so that's what I was, a full-time novelist from there on in.
that must have been amazing.
It was scary because I still, I had to learn how to put on makeup and go on tour, and I was fine one-on-one, but the promotion part, well, first of all, you couldn't be gay. My publisher were very good about teaching me how to kind of talk around. Not that I was with anybody, because I had like a different person in my life with every book, because I was not very good at relationships. That's why I wrote about them, CK. They could come out better when you make them up. And I can't believe I'm telling you all this. Like you're in my house. Anybody who's read my books knows, over the years began to catch on. Oh gosh, she's probably gay. And although I almost got married. The other thing I forgot, you know why I started writing novels? I stopped drinking.
Yes, because you had mentioned in your forum that you were were you-
I was going to be the youngest alcoholic failure in the book publishing industry. They gave me, as a young editor, they gave me an expense account and they never saw me again. I mean, not really, but I would go to lunch and I drank a lot and I drank every day. And when I was 27, something happened and I looked in the mirror and I said, my God, it's Mom. And I heard her as clear as day. No, darling, Laura Elnor, she always called me. You can't do that. You can't go down that same road. And actually, it was a wonderful story. One of the authors I was working with at Doubleday took me to an AA meeting. So funny. I was 27. Who wants to get sober at 27? But to make a long story short, I stopped drinking and I thought, well, what do people do all night if you don't drink? So I started writing again and I started a novel, which ended up being Riverside Drive 4 years later. But I hadn't even noticed that since I had left college, I hadn't written a word of my own. And I want to say that to all the aspiring writers out there, that particularly in fiction, your emotional energy, you can give it to other people or you can put it in your writing, because people will suck you dry and you'll have nothing to write with. Because what you feel while you're writing is what your readers feel when they're reading. And if you're drinking a lot, you don't have much to give. I mean, some people lasted a long time. They were brilliant writers, I mean, all of them. Hemingway, Fitzgerald, Edith Wharton, God, who didn't drink, right? Dorothy Parker. And we didn't learn that. I didn't learn that lesson until I stopped drinking and then I wanted to write. And that's my great secret. You want to write fiction? Stop drinking at night.
So how many years would you say you were an alcoholic?
From the get-go. 7th grade, when I was 13, I remember going to my first church dance, and a friend of mine, we got a couple of beers and drank them, and I was the most beautiful girl at the dance suddenly. Alcohol made me feel absolutely indestructible.
Mm,
And so I drank at every social occasion because I
that's
wasn't
it.
interested in being awkward. I wasn't interested in going through adolescence. I was interested in instantly drinking and having credibility as a smoker. As I had my parents to model myself after, right?
Of course.
And
Of
I could
course.
be very sophisticated. And of course, when you stop drinking, then you have to go back and deal with all those things you didn't go through in adolescence, like learning to be awkward socially, but getting through it.
Yes.
Don't run away from it. And when I became an author, suddenly I had to do it. And I was stone cold sober. And I was the only one on the road stone cold sober. I'd go to like the Book Expo America and, my editor, the publisher, everybody's bombed. And they're like, "Oh, Laura, have a drink." An alcoholic's dream to be a writer. Everybody wants you to drink with them. So I learned not to be so awkward.
Exposure therapy.
Expose my therapy?
No, exposure therapy. That's what that's called.
Oh, exposure therapy. I thought you
Yes.
said expose your therapy, Laura. What kind was it? Jungian. Jungian.
Yeah, it was exposure therapy. It's also known as in vivo therapy. It's just the thing that scares you is what you do, and
Yeah.
you learn to cope through that
Yes.
sort of exposure.
And anybody can do it at any age.
Absolutely.
Right? I seem to have a lot of people in my life who started writing or doing something daring later in their late 40s or 50s. And it's so interesting to watch them now because my generation, because you could be my son, CK, we don't retire. People who graduate in the class of 74 don't retire. They just start something else. And it's marvelous to see as I get older and well, let me tell you the story about my class.
Okay.
All right. I grew up in this town, this commuter town called Darien, Connecticut. Gorgeous town. And nobody was from Darien. Everybody moved there. All of our fathers had been in either the Army in World War II or they had been in Korea. And then they had gone on to college because of the GI Bill. So you've got 6 million men in America suddenly who are going to school and want to improve themselves. And one of those people was my dad. He, like all the other men in Darien, commuted to New York City, which was the corporate headquarters of the world. And they all hired these World War II and Korean vets because they were disciplined. They had good college degrees and they knew how to conform because they were good in the service, right? One of my classmates pointed this out to me. Laura, he goes, didn't you wonder, our fathers look exactly the same getting on the train every morning going into New York. That was their GI training. They wore the same suit, the same kinds of things. They lived their life the same way. They followed the routine as it was laid out to them. IBM, which in my day was nicknamed I've Been Moved because people came through Darien all the time with IBM. They had a dress code. They taught their executives, and that code was pretty much the same all the way across the board. And today people call it preppy. Like you went to prep school. My dad didn't go to prep school, but he believed in being the best he could be. And he knew who he should look to learn how to pattern himself. Who do you look up to? Who are your role models? For my mother in Texas, it was Joan Crawford on the silver screen. That was her role model. So when she got to Darien from her little town in Texas, and all these women were so sophisticated, she thought, and people made fun of her accents, and she just started to die inside.
Starts to
There's I'm just starting to approach a character in the class of 74, because I know people who knew me as a little kid wonder, where's the real Mrs. Van Warmer? Where's Laura's real mother? And she's coming. But you see, CK, I'm interested in regeneration, right? I don't want to get depressed and sit and cry all the time about my mother, because I will, because she was so wonderful and life was so cruel, but she's healed now. She's healthy. She's happy. And when I look back and I'm taking people back to high school, I don't want to take them back to all the pain. I want to go back and beat up all the bullies.
yes.
We
Yeah.
beat the crap out of them, right? All those people, the snobs, just get them, Laura. So we go back to my fantasy world. This is where you get to be a novelist. You identify with the major character, Cynthia, who is very much like me. And she's 15. She's starting high school. She doesn't want to be awkward. So she smokes, she drinks, right? All that stuff. But all these kids are rich kids in this town. All their fathers dress up exactly the same and go into New York. All their mothers are home taking Valium and drinking and doing all this stuff. And the kids, there's no such thing as being gay. So all the kids who ended up being gay in our class, we all kind of look at each other and say, my God, you've made it through. Because a lot didn't. We had a lot of kids die in our class. A lot of car wrecks, the drunk driving. Everybody drove drunk, let me tell you, back then. So I don't want to glorify that in any way. But I do want to go back and show younger people, this is how it was. And you don't want to go back to that.
So I want to interject real quick and say to the people who are listening at home, just so that we don't lose them, is that when you're talking of the class of 74, this is your own podcast, if you will, but
Yes.
it's
a made up story. Yes.
A fictionalized podcast. It has episodes
every week.
Every week. So what I want to do is kind of help people
bake the bridge.
How we got. Yes, right?
Right. So, okay, we're getting to that.
Yeah. So you were a alcoholic. And then in 27, you went to your first AA meeting, and then you stopped drinking.
And then I started writing again for the first time.
And you have written, just for people at home, 12, 14?
14. I published 14. Actually, I published 16 books if you counted Dallas and Knots Landing books. Yeah.
Well, that's just it. Like, the other thing is like Knots Landing, Dynasty, Dallas. Like, these are like massive shows that are ingrained in my brain that we watched growing up with my parents, right? Like,
well, they were soap operas.
But evening
that's but that's what I'm writing, CK.
Right now.
Yes, and I will take you over this bridge. Are you ready? So I published 14 novels, right? And I think I'm hot damn, right? One of my friends that I had met while I was an editor, and then we had the same literary agent, was Betty White, of the Golden Girls. And Betty was writing a new book. She was on Hot in Cleveland at this time, with Valerie Bertinelli and everybody.
Oh, yes. I've seen every episode many times.
Yeah, and it's very funny. And Betty was just, oh, God, she was wonderful. Our agent, Loretta Barrett, who was wonderful, got an inoperable brain tumor. And I was trying to help out at her agency. And one of the things was we had a new Betty White book, and the girls from Hot in Cleveland, the show was over then, they were going to help write the book. We were going to get them all together talking with Betty about different subjects, right? And then make a book out of it somehow. And so I was flying out to LA to see Betty. And I was staying at going to stay at Donna Mills' house. Remember Donna Mills? She was Abby Ewing, the bad girl, the villainess on Knots Landing. Anyway, I got in my car and I was going to a 6:00 flight at LaGuardia, and this drunk driver, right? How long have I been sober?
Years now.
I'm the one who gets the kid who's drunk driving the wrong way through a tunnel on a divided highway. Yeah, I didn't have much time to react, and I saw him coming and there was nothing I could do except slam on the brakes, right? So he hit me and I woke up almost a month later, and my family was just devastated. It was terrifying. I mean, this is my ventilator voice, call it, because I was on too long on the ventilator, so one of my vocal cords doesn't work so well. And I was a real loudmouth before. But my chest got crushed and my foot came off on the brake. And we found it. God bless Yale, New Haven. They attached my foot again. And anyway, they had to rebuild me. I was literally Humpty Dumpty. I was all in pieces. And when I came to, I was just loopy. Well, the high school class at Darien High School, 74, had all written me letters and cards because everybody thought I was going to die. And they started a prayer chain. Oh, gosh. This is like one of our head cheerleaders and one of my great friends, Lizzie and Debbie. Hi, guys. They had, and Facebook, was big, and my accident was all over everywhere. And so there I am, and I'm looking at these kids, and they're bringing in things from the Buffalo Bills, my favorite football team, who sent me stuff from the team, said, get well soon. But these cards, just hundreds of these. And in these letters, CK, you'll appreciate this. I had one classmate, he wrote me, he said, I was gay in high school and I was frightened. And then he read my first novel and he said, I bet Laura's gay. I bet Laura's gay. She had a lot of boyfriends and I did. But I used to say, I love men. I love having sex with men. I just don't seem to fall in love with them for a very long time. I just said that on a show. Laura, what is wrong with you?
It's okay. We
I'm
can
gonna
edit
make
that
your
out
show.
if you want.
If I want. We want to get you a sponsor. Let's see, what drugs am I on? Wellbutrin. I invented Prozac because I quit smoking when I was writing. I wrote my first novel smoking. I say that's why it was my best novel. And then, of course, I had to go on Prozac because I sank like a rock after I quit smoking. Okay. Laura has no secrets now.
It's all out in the open. It's
Well, we're not quite there yet.
Okay.
Because here I am, and it was a long rehab. I started walking again after 6 months.
That's
And
wow.
my other half, she was devastated. We've been together for 30 years. I was a late bloomer. I didn't settle down till I was 39. And it's funny. I didn't, of course, I'm high as a kite on all these drugs because I've got 16 broken ribs and broken pieces in my neck and my knees broken and the foot's off. And so they've got me on all these opiates, right? It's a dream, drug addict's dream. I was high as a kite. And when I was in rehab for 3 months, it was like I was in a cocktail party for 3 months. But then I had to come down. But my other half, she's like, Laura, our entire lives are destroyed. And I'm, oh, no, it's not. I thought, I'll be a millionaire. This guy just ruined my life. Isn't it? They're going to pay me millions. Of course not. He ran away to Peru. We're just stuck. And Chris is stuck with this broken woman. But she was wonderful. And my family was wonderful, which is partly her family too. And the rehab was long. The problem is I had a lot of cognitive damage, and
it's really like bad brain injury.
Yeah. I just,
which I can only imagine if you had your chest crushed and your foot was removed, the trauma alone from that experience would be enough to miss somebody completely.
Well, the force of him hitting me put the engine, it was a Jaguar, 8-cylinder Jaguar, and the engine went through the passenger seat. He hit me pretty hard. And nothing happened to him. Not a thing. He just flew in and crashed, and then the next morning waltzed out of the hospital like drunks do. And of course, when I was like in and out of it in the hospital, and I thought I had been drunk driving. I thought I was in LA and somehow I had gotten drunk and was in a car crash. I didn't know what was going on. Anyway, so my class sent me all these wonderful things. And I thought, I got to get right back on the saddle and write another book. So I started to try to write another novel, and I couldn't. I just couldn't do it. And
Was there something that you can remember that was sort of blocking you? Was it just was
well,
the
it was my mental musculature. I always tell people that when you write fiction, it's like starting with a blank piece of paper. But when you write a nonfiction, it's like a coloring book. You have the lines of the facts, so you can just follow those to know where you're going. But I had this fiction. I thought, well, maybe I should try to write historical fiction. Maybe I could do it that way. It wasn't working. And my old editor, God bless her, my old publisher, she just said, Laura, it's just not. And I said, I know, I knew. And the lung doctor, I don't remember what they call that, because my lungs had gotten really banged up. He took me aside. He said, look, I hear you complaining about your mental stuff. And he shared with me that he was ADD by birth. He said, you are ADD now. I said, by accident. And I'm like, oh. He said, that's what's going on, is that you've got a short circuit in your brain. And you can't, that's what, and you're getting more and more frustrated. And I said, yes, I am. And, physically, mentally. And he just pleaded with me, goes, just try, ask your psychiatrist if, and my psychiatrist agreed with him. He was just scared to say it to me because, when you have ADD, you're basically taking a form of speed. And that just goes against everything I believe. It was hard enough for me to go on antidepressants and be sober, right? But I also could see I wasn't going to be able to function without it. So I started taking something, and it got better. And then I got a job at Barnes and Noble. I decided, okay, I'm going to throw myself into the world. Oh my God, those poor kids. I mean, I was mad as a hatter. And they put me in charge of the book club. And it was the most wonderful thing I could have done for myself, learning the register and waiting all these customers, and nobody knew who I was.
But I love this because you weren't writing, but you were still surrounded
I had to
by
be.
the books, the people coming in to find the latest of their favorite authors, and this. So I
It's
can
still
sort of see
there.
that, right? Yeah, and like
And
you had just been
some of the
through
books I had edited were still in print. And I'd say, I edited that. Look at the acknowledgments.
What year was it? The accident,
2015.
2015. So we're
June
looking at
June
11 years ago.
14th. June 14th. It's 10.5 years. Yep. So, okay. So I did that. And then when the pandemic happened, I started trying to write a biography of an 18th century countess, actress who became a countess, the Countess of Derby, and who had burned all her letters. And it's because of Jackie Onassis. Her portrait hangs in the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Her name was Elizabeth Farron. And Jackie told me to go to the Metropolitan whenever I was lonely and talk to the artists who had their art in there. She said, let them fill you with creative energy. And I got hooked on this painting, this woman. And it turned out nobody knew anything about her because she had destroyed her correspondence and her husband had destroyed his correspondence. And it ended up being a puzzle that I've been piecing together for 30 years. And I thought, okay, I'm going to write Elizabeth. So 4 years later, can I sell the book? No. Am I having trouble writing? Yes. Am I discouraged? Yes. Am I driving my family crazy? Yes. So I thought, well, that's that. And then I had my fifth high school reunion coming up. And I didn't want to go because I don't look well, because I got really, my face got all smashed up. They used to say, no girl leaves Darien homely, because they send you to the orthodontist, the dermatologist, the plastic surgeon, whatever. They want to make sure you look good when you left. So I didn't want to go. Then I thought, well, come on, you want to go. So I just went to the dinner, the Saturday night dinner. Everybody else had come in for the weekend, and I didn't do that. I just showed up at the dinner, and my old boyfriend came over, was squiring me around, and everybody was glad to see me, and nobody could hear me because of my voice. That's why
Mm.
I'm using a microphone. And they all looked so wonderful. I mean, these were like all my old friends, and I'm remembering what they all wrote me, all these wonderful things. So I feel so close to them, closer than anybody would to their old classmates, because they had all written me these
Yeah.
intensely personal. There were 242 letters. I mean, that's a lot of people. So I'm looking at them, and I went home early, and Chris said, "What's the matter?" I said, nobody could hear me. I was so frustrated. And back in the day in high school, I used to have a few beers at a keg party, and I'd stop the party. I'd say, all right, everybody stop. I want to read you the story I wrote. And everybody go, oh, no, Laura's going to read another story, right? And in the back of my mind at our 50th reunion, I always thought I should stop the dinner and say, Laura's written a story. Stop what you're doing. She's going to read it to you. And that's why I said to Chris, I wish I could have done that. And she said, write your class a story and read it to them as a podcast, and then they can hear you. And I went, well, what? I'd write about high school? She goes, yes. What a cool time. Write about the first day of high school. I'm like, yes, yes. So I ran in, and I knew nothing about podcasting or anything. And so I just started writing about this 15-year-old going on the first day of school, and and the adventures start piling on, about your boyfriend and your girlfriend and the weird teachers and what's going on and the world events happening. And I'm doing these episodes, and my classmates are listening. And then suddenly I'm going, who are the 15 people in Indiana that are listening now? Who are those people? And who's in Ireland, or who's in Turkey, or who are all these people? And as it would turn out, people were starting to listen. They weren't sure what it was, and people don't. And that's why we have to explain. It's like a soap opera. It's an ongoing fictional story about high school in the early 1970s. So it's a serial. So if you listen to the class of 74, start in season 1 with episode 1. I mean, you really don't have to, but you should if you want a companion, a friend. And what I've written the thing I wanted to hear when I was in the hospital. I wanted to hear something that would take me a million miles away and would make me laugh and remember about high school, but I wouldn't want to relive those days, but would make me glad to be whatever age I was right then, right?
Mm.
To be able to go back, but safely, not get all hurt and beat up and everything, and alcoholism is in the story, but the way I handle it, you have to laugh. You have to, because you take a more objective look, because everybody's drunk, right?
Yeah.
And the bar car on the train, and our father's rolling out of it, because there was a train delay. So they've been stuck in the bar car for 7 hours, all kinds of. So I write this thing every week, CK, and I get very nervous. And I had to learn about podcasting and microphones and taping. And I only did it because I didn't have to appear in front of a camera, because I don't like what I look like now. And then I needed to promote my podcast. And I thought, Laura, stop it. What's the pride? What is this? What's left? Your life should be an open book because people should learn from my life. They should understand you can start at any point and start over, but pay attention to what's working. Pay attention to what you can do and try it out and see what it is. I never thought, oh gosh, I'm going to make up a new episode of an ongoing story every week. It's a podcast. Science fiction shows do it and horror shows do it, all in Canada. I always think the CBC is funding them all, but that's just me. And what is the Canadian vampire show that's in no, it's in Toronto. It's not Montreal. So I just had to go with it and invent something that I could do, and I could do it well. And my life, I'm alive again. I mean, CK, I get to write fiction again. I never thought I would.
I love this. There's so much that
Okay.
we could unpack right there, right?
Mm.
Because, it's to me, a person who lives on the outside looking in,
Yeah.
sitting here with you right now.
Yes.
I see this absolutely gorgeous woman
Oh.
with lots of spirits,
Well,
lots of,
you're Canadian, so you're very polite.
well, yeah, but I don't lie, right? That's not who I am.
Not
And
often.
like your energy,
Yeah, I've had them. I always did. And
you-
that's my mom's energy, by the way. This is
well,
Margaret
no,
Garner,
but
man, woman.
you seem to give your light away to other people.
In
Even
my
just in this
writing.
call.
In my
No, but
writing.
even just now, you're like, that's your mom's light. That's your mom's behavior. But no, but this is your behavior. This is your light. You have throughout the last, I don't know if you said your age in the show or before the show. So I don't want
Yeah,
to
I
out your
just turned 70. I just turned
Okay,
70.
so
Yeah.
in the last 70 years, you have
Oh.
cultivated that light and you have made choices. At 27, no one wants to give up drinking at 27. You said that yourself. You made the choice to do that.
Only
That
because
hard,
I could write. The writing is what sealed the deal.
but you still had to make that choice. You had to do
Yeah.
the work. When you had your accident and the ironic little shit that hit you in the tunnel going the wrong way,
Yeah.
you had to make the choice to work through that rehabilitation,
Yeah.
to get up every day, right? Then the choice to go to the reunion despite yourself not wanting to go, thinking that you're homely, all of these
No, I
faulty
wanted
attempts.
to go. I wanted to be the most popular girl in the class.
But I think that you are that person
Mm.
effortlessly because of who you are. Like, how many people in your class has lived the life that you've lived and has the stories to share that you share?
Well, they have in their own way, though.
In their own way.
CK,
That's
I
fair.
don't have children, right? And
Okay.
a lot of my old friends are just starting their lives now, but then the grandkids are now being dropped off at the house. So their life is just different. And their life they have given themselves. The girls have been giving themselves, and the guys have been good fathers, really, because we're the first class that was taught that all people are created equal in this country.
I just want you to take credit where credit is due
Well, thank you.
because I see things unbiasedly. I'm just, obviously, when you're living in it, you've gone through what you've gone through. The stories that we tell ourselves are very different than what other people see. And just because of the stories that we tell ourselves does not make them fact or true. They may feel true to
True.
us, but
True.
it may not actually be true, right? Because we're too close to it. But I mean, so the class of 74, this had happened in 2015. You went through a long rehab, as you said.
Right.
You're
We had
Chris,
our 20th, our 24.
24. Chris and you are still together,
Mm-hmm.
right? So this
Yeah.
is incredible. 30 years, you said?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
But the last
Absolutely.
10 have been, golly. Yeah.
But different,
Blessed. It's blessed. Yeah.
right? And
Late
then
bloomer.
you started the class of 74, when? 2024?
I came home. We had it was late. It was in the fall and it was in September. And I came home and Chris said that, and I started the next day. And the first taping, I believe, was April 25th of 25. But I didn't know
Amazing.
what I was doing. And I wasn't sure what I was doing. I was just going to do what Laura wanted to do, which is pretty much what my whole career has been like. Sometimes successfully, sometimes not so successfully. But yeah, and it is what it is. It's not mine anymore. The class of 74 is the class of 74 now. Those characters own this show. I'm just there to write it down and read it.
I love
That's what
this.
the joy of fiction. That's what the joy is when you create the characters and then you just watch.
But there's a lot of joy happening right there now.
Yes.
So
And you hear them.
the joy of finding something that fills you up again,
Yes.
right?
A
After
sense of
maybe,
achievement, of, yes, completion. When you do an episode, you put it to bed and you think, oh, it could be a lot better. And then you think, no, Laura, if you've learned anything, do it. It's better to
well,
get it done than not do it, you know? And that gratification that as you watch your body of work
grow.
pile up. Yeah.
And then,
Second time around, though, this season 2, I have to get my episodes out on time. And it took a long time to figure out how long should it be. God, I had one episode that was like an hour and 15 minutes. Do you have any idea how much writing that is?
that's a lot of writing, yes.
My God, because I just was so excited, And so now it's like be a half hour, and I'll get it done every week. And that's much more manageable.
Manageable, but also like just that's a pulse, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like a steady pulse that
Well, I
you are,
like to think people are starting to really want to hear it. Like
they
your
probably
show,
do.
I'm going to be turning to your show when I'm really down and out. But it's true that CK, people you talk to, you bring them out of themselves and it brings you out of yourself.
It's connection.
Walk into another man's shoe, right?
Or women's,
Right.
right?
And you
You had
feel
mentioned at
better.
you had mentioned at the beginning of this show that both your mothers
Mm.
were very sociable and
Yes.
charming and could
Yes.
talk to strangers and all of those things. And
Right.
it's interesting because that's who I am, in the sense I live alone, I have a job,
There you
I'm
go. Yeah.
we're good. But
Well, your
when it
dog,
comes
your puppy.
well, she's a year now.
Mhm.
She's over a year. So she's still a puppy. She's always going to be my baby forever. But anyway, one of the things that I love about this show, and go back to something else that you just said as well about, like, you started doing the class of 74. It created something that gave you a sense of achievement, and your
Yes.
message seems to
Yes.
be, it doesn't matter where you are, what age you are, just do it,
Yeah.
right? And that's what this show was. Like, the very first episode that I recorded was my story of how I'm still here, but also I was packaged out of my corporate cushy job.
Wow.
And I was like,
What
didn't
am
know
I?
what to do next. And
Yeah.
ever since I was a little boy, I wanted to have a
Have a
talk show.
show.
And
Well,
so,
you
but
must have watched Oprah and Donahue then as a little boy.
gosh, I grew up with Oprah. Like, I remember being on
Oh,
the floor as like 5, 6 years old, watching Oprah on the television, because that's
oh,
what she was. She was global, right? So we
yeah.
had basic cable. We could watch that show. And to me, watching Oprah was like one
Yeah.
of my highlights of my day, because it's like she was familiar, she seemed kind, and all of those things. And she talked to all of these interesting people. And like, I learned so much from Oprah over
And
the
she
years.
gave of herself. It was
Oh,
school. She
yes.
was trying. I do believe that, I think it was Diane Sawyer who once said that, isn't self-improvement the American way? And it is, or it was, and Canada too. I always kind of think of us, I know we're politically at odds right now. Some of the countries are politically at odds, but that's what Oprah represents, you know, working your way up, practicing, finding what you're good at, and improving yourself. That's what life's
Yeah.
about, right?
Well, absolutely.
And that's
I
what
think,
podcasting's about too.
yeah, I think the secret sauce for anybody is to learn to give
Yeah.
themselves grace,
Yeah.
because we are our own worst critics. We
Yeah.
are our own obstacles and barriers.
Yeah.
Sometimes our internal dialogues are just nasty, nasty things that we'd never put outward to someone else, but we feel very fine to say it to ourselves.
Yeah.
So giving ourselves grace and showing us our own selves kindness is the least that we can do for ourselves to allow growth. It doesn't have to
Yes.
happen all at once, but that's where you start. Believing in yourself enough to say, you know what, I'm just going to do the thing, and it doesn't matter if it fails because you did it. What's the worst thing? The internet is so vast, right?
Mhm.
That you could do a podcast or five and none of it works, and you could just go and it'll just get lost in the internet.
But then you hear from one person.
That can make a huge difference. And to me, if one person watches my show and takes something away from it, then I have succeeded in what I set out to do.
Then you know that you're not crazy. No, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I totally know what you're saying. Yeah.
You do.
So
And
you're
because, there, I believe very much in God, right? And I've been blessed. I mean, I feel like I get to find out who I was meant to be. And is it a podcaster? No. But if it's a person who can give herself and infuse her good feelings and energy into others, to help them along the way, then I'm happy. That's who I want to be.
yeah, that's what I want to be. If I die tomorrow,
If we're not all depressed,
pardon?
if we're not home depressed.
I haven't felt depressed, like really depressed in a very long time.
Since you started the podcast, is that?
No, since I tried to take my life in
Yeah,
2017,
I heard you
right?
say that. Wow,
So I
217.
go through normal, like lows and highs and things like that, but not like a severe, long, drawn out
Yeah,
depression in really
yeah,
long time. But if I were to die tomorrow, and all I would want is for someone to say, I remember that he was kind. That's all I care about.
we're gonna play
Nothing else.
an episode at your funeral of the show because we've got it all on YouTube now, right?
Well, I suppose,
So we
yes.
live
But
forever.
it's true. But yeah, I
Yes.
think kindness, I think when I started being kind to myself, I realized how important it was to be kind to others.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I will always follow up with this so people understand that being kind and being nice are two different things.
Yeah.
They are. So
Yeah.
you can be assertive and firm with someone and still be kind.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you are, I mean, 70 years old, you've lived a very incredible life. Incredible can be both scary and successful and bumpy and all of those things. And at 70 years old, you have a podcast which is called The Class of 74. It is a
Yay.
fictionalized series of going to school, high school at the age of 15,
It
and
opens up
all the
at
things
1971.
1971. And
Okay.
so, like, what do you think? Like, what's next for you? You're going to maintain the pulse of the show, I
I
would
think I'm
imagine.
going to just stay with this because what's happened is that I am a history buff
Okay.
and I have spent an entire season. We've only gone 1 week in the school year because there's so much going on in the background. President Nixon creates the Environmental Protection Agency.
Mm.
And everybody says, what? And I say, well, yeah, that's what the Republican Party used to be. They thought Americans had a right to clean water and clean air.
It is interesting
Yeah.
how far things
things have
fallen.
changed. And we were still in Vietnam, and we learned how expensive wars were, and what got cut, with social welfare programs. Also, and you'll identify with this, we've got a kid who's got doing some drug things, and there's nowhere to send him. There's no rehab. There's no such thing as a rehab in 1971. And even if there were, insurance didn't cover it. Whenever I think unkindly, like, why did my father do something about my mother? And then I think, well, there was nowhere to send her. Although I think Catholics there was a place out, they would send women, Catholic women had a convent they could send them to stop drinking. You hear these things over the years, but no one ever knew what to do.
What day does your show air? What day of the week?
Well, now it's going to be Mondays.
Okay.
It'll post at 6 a.m. on Mondays. It was on
Eastern?
Friday, Eastern time, Monday Eastern
Okay.
time, and it's everywhere. It's everywhere now, and you can binge on the whole first season. I just started a Patreon page. Do you have a Patreon page?
I do not.
Okay,
But
let me tell you why I did it. This advertiser thing is a real sketchy thing. At Patreon, what I do is people join the detention club, $5 a month. And at the end of every episode, I post all my notes, all the nonfiction stuff that goes into the show. So I put up all the videos and all the things from that time period, that episode, and put that up. And after each episode, they get to talk to me and tell me what they like and what they don't like, right? And we're just starting to warm up because they're all very shy. Actually, I'm trying to get them together this Sunday. But I think that is the pathway, is that it's not broadcasting, it's narrow casting that we're doing. That if you get, your friends to belong for $5 a month, they want to support what you're doing, suddenly you have an income stream.
this is true.
And it's a reliable one, much more reliable. And then that way, who was it that told me? Oh, yeah, Michelangelo knew that. He just needed one patron. And I thought, well, God, that's right. That's why they call it Patreon. People
I
have a
loved
little
it.
extra money and they want to support people in work they believe in.
I love that.
And you
I love
post,
that. I'll have to check it out.
Yes,
But I love
do.
how you did the detention center.
No, not center, detention club.
Detention club. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
I've just said center. Yes, I did. Detention club. Yes.
That's so funny because in that last episode, I was just writing something where they don't know if this kid got thrown out of prep school or reform school. No one's sure.
Well, it has been a pleasure to talk with you today.
Well, I think we're probably going to keep in touch, don't you think?
Oh, I think so too.
Oh, I think so too, because I got to stay on you about the Patreon thing. No, seriously, and I remember learning at Syracuse, I went there, the one thing that I learned that in political ads, for example, Tony Schwartz did that commercial. There was a daisy. It was against President Johnson, and a big bomb went off. And it's a very famous commercial. But you weren't going to everybody. You were just trying to reach one person out there. And that's who counts. Connect with that person. And that's what I found as a writer. The people who like to read me, they were just diehard fans.
Well, I always say I'd rather have 100 engaged listeners.
Yes, and then they get to be part of it a little bit.
Than a million non-engaged. Do you see what I'm saying?
Suggest guests, or they maybe are going to be a guest, or, but they can be a part of what you're doing because it's very exciting creating something, I think. And I've never been able to share it with anybody, really, that way. So
I want to, it's my show, so I can go as long as I want to.
Well,
Laura Van Warmer.
Rhymes with Dormer.
Rhymes with Dormer. You can go over there. You can read a lot about her story. There are links to her books, pictures. You can get your books are still in print, yes?
Well, actually, at the time of my accident, we were just rejacketing all of them, the mass market, and I have to write an introduction to each one, and I haven't been able to do it. So a lot of them are out of print, but they're in ebooks and I don't know, they're out there. It's
Well,
used copies. Yeah, there's lots of used copies. Go
but
for
as
it.
long as we can people, because there's a lot of I love the covers of so many of them.
A lot of them,
And
they're in the libraries pretty well. Librarians always liked me.
I love it. So lauravanwarmer.net, you can go check her out. You can check out, there's a link to the podcast as well. The
Class of
podcast,
74 podcast.
yes, the Class of 74 podcast. And it comes out on Mondays at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time every week. Laura, it has been a true pleasure. It really has.
Me too.
And I
For me too.
look forward to chatting with you again sometime.
Me too. Me too.
All right.
God
Until
bless.
next time, everyone, get out and live your wildest dreams.